Thank you, Senator Pocock. Senator Whitten.
My questions are mainly directed at you, Minister. I went to the last estimates and attended the Department of Women and talked about the possibility of a Department of Men, and they directed me here to ask these questions of you. So,
thank you. That was a good handball. Fantastic.
You can thank Minister Gallagher.
I'm going to find out who that was. You mean the Office of Women?
Office, sorry,
which
Office
is
of Women.
Tomorrow.
I thought that Senator Gallagher, I think I might have observed some of that questioning, and I thought she answered, if I may say, much better than I might, the government's view about equality being important for both men and women, and the work that the government was doing in relation, for example, to men's health and other areas. But what is your question, Senator?
Is there going to be an Office for Men established? And I'll give you some stats. So
Senator,
men make up 77% of suicides, the 95% of workplace deaths. They only have primary care of their children, around 10% of the separations. They're 92% of the prison population. Boys under 18 are 3 times more likely to be on ADHD medication. And Australian boys are now 38% of students starting university. It would seem that boys and men could do with an office for men if there's an office for women.
I always, over the years that I have advocated in various contexts for equality, including in my own party for affirmative action and in this place, I think a kind of zero-sum game around equality is not helpful to our society. And
Sorry, would you mind speaking up? I'm really quite deaf. I'm happy for you.
Over the years, sorry, I'll try and repeat. Over the years that I have advocated for greater equality, whether it's inside our party, affirmative action, or here, I've also put the view that I think equality is a benefit to all, and that dealing with some of the structural disadvantage and discrimination against women was not something that ought be feared. Now, the issues you raise around men's health, we are the first government, I think, I'll stand corrected if I'm wrong, that has appointed an envoy for men's health. And that is a good thing. And I don't think the fact that there is an office for women to try and deal with the disadvantage and discrimination that our daughters and our still experience should be seen as somehow a negative for men and boys.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily talking about discrimination. Society, families, women, children would all do better with better men. Men can do so much better, and I just don't understand why there wouldn't be an office for men to help that cause, because there's so many benefits to having good, moral men. I'm not saying men are being discriminated against, and I'm not taking anything away from women, might I add. I 100% agree and support the Office for Women. I'm just curious as to why there wouldn't be an Office for Men, given the challenges that men and boys are facing at the moment.
I'm not sure it's an estimates question, but...
a comment, perhaps. I think the envoy, you might want to follow the social media of the envoy for men's health. I think you quite appreciate it.
I saw some today.
Didn't you have one here to delete this morning?
Oh, I don't know.
I didn't want to bring it
Okay,
up.
he's a little entertaining, there's no doubt, but I think there's some very,
Might not
very
have advertised
solid
that one.
material in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll probably
Did you have
stop
another
following.
question, Senator Whitten?
Sorry?
Did you have another question?
No, I'll leave it at that, but I just want to put on the record that I would think that an office for men would be warranted, given the challenges that men and boys face in the current climate. Not taking anything away from women.
Thank you. Senator Cash, would you like to take us out to the break?
Whilst I welcome Senator Whitten's line of questioning, I cannot help but note the similarities between Senator Whitten and Oliver Twist. Men should not be begging feminist advocate for a few morsels of compassion. We should be demanding our fundamental human rights. Over a century ago, when feminists' campaign for equality came to widespread public attention, our society prejudicially assumed that everything in life was fair for men. The era was characterized by the circumstance of women, lack of voting rights, education, careers, financial independence, and cultural expectations placed on women. The era was also characterized by the circumstance of men. It was men who were conscripted and expected to defend their countries and fight to their death in war. Men were expected to make the ultimate sacrifice to save the lives of women on sinking ships. Whilst women complained of their suffrage and the denial of the right to vote, our society treated men's lives as worthless and expendable. Society failed to recognise men's suffrage, starting with the fact you can't vote if you are dead. Suffragette women demanded the right to vote and handed out white feathers to men as a sign of cowardice when it was inconceivable that women would be expected to defend their countries to their death. As we take stock of these events, the conclusions which must be drawn. Humanity's most fundamental prejudice has from eternity favoured the safety and welfare of women over men. The right for women to vote is important, but the era was also characterised by the worthless value placed on men's lives. In handing out white feathers, feminist suffragettes proved women are capable of promoting discrimination against men and exposed their malicious contempt for the safety and welfare of men. Whilst complaining for the equal treatment of women, feminists were completely without conscience about men's circumstance or the way in which women treated men. Instead of recognising discrimination and disadvantage is something which affects both genders, the whole of the free world looked exclusively through the eyes of women and has now proved for a century a society which is prejudicially blind to the circumstance of men. In Australia in the 1970s, specific representation for the circumstance of women was established by our federal government. Women's fundamental human right to be treated equally with men was established, and men's fundamental human right to be treated equally with women was denied. Our federal government handed the issue of gender equality exclusively to the women's movement, who had previously established their sexist hypocrisy and contempt for men in a society which is prejudicially blind. Our federal government had treated the issue as if our society had provided a gender equality menu for women to exclusively choose. Men supporting other men was seen as sex discrimination, whilst women supporting other women was seen as the pursuit of equality. Federal government based its legislation from the exclusive perspective of women. Any attempt to defend what is fair to men was held down. There could never be enough gender equality to quench their insatiable appetite. For women, there was everything to gain and nothing to be lost. Still, no one noticed or cared about the sexist hypocrisy which all of this is based. For men to question the basis of feminism was seen as the protection of patriarchal male privilege in a society which is exclusively and manifestly unfair to women. If we dared utter the most benign questions of feminist ideology or assertions, we were held down as the patriarchal, sexist, misogynist, prehistoric dinosaurs to be exiled and shamed in sackcloth for the rest of our lives. The pursuit of gender equality for the exclusive benefit of only one gender was never seen as a corrupt ideology, and the sexist hypocrites who have always been at the centre of the feminist movement were never exposed. Gender equality was dictated to men by our government based on corrupt feminist terms. Feminist women used the opportunity not only to pursue self-interest for women, but also to construct and legislate structural disadvantage and systemic discrimination against men. The most obvious example was the circumstance of divorce. In post-feminist society, men lost the majority of their joint financial assets. Men were ostracised from their marriages, evicted from their homes, and separated from their children's lives. Men are expected to fund their estranged families to live in the manner to which they had become accustomed, because our society demanded that everything in life continued to be fair to everyone to the exclusion of men. The circumstance of divorce was established as a career choice for women. The circumstance is not only testament to feminist contempt for men, it is also testament that men care more about the welfare of women and children than they do about themselves. Our marriages and families were used as weapons against us to achieve male capitulation based on matriarchal coercive control against the backdrop of legislated systemic discrimination against men. Men were expected to pick up the pieces of their shattered lives and face the same circumstance again. The interaction between Senator Wong and Senator Whitten bears all these characteristics. Over the last 25 years, questions regarding the circumstance of men have increased, and questions regarding feminism have exposed the corruption of the ideology on which it is based. Questions raised by Senator Whitten now strike at the heart of the issue, and now demonstrates disadvantage and discrimination against men is no longer a prejudicial oversight, but a refusal to uphold men's fundamental human rights. After a century of universal voting rights in a democratic society with free speech and opinionated debate, it is a shame on our democracy, a shame of biblical proportions that men are placed in a position of asking a feminist advocate for a morsel of compassion when we should be demanding our government finally grant our overdue fundamental human rights. Feminists define gender equality as the right of women to compare every conceivable aspect of their lives with men and expect society to address every disadvantage faced by women. The fundamental point about equality, to treat people equally, is not a hard concept to understand. Yet the implications of this concept continue to escape the whole of the free world, and everyone falsely chose to believe gender equality was being pursued. The same concepts and principles of gender equality which have been applied to women for a century must also apply to men. In Penny Wong's response to Senator Whitten holding out his bowl and asking for some compassion for men, he received the same disbelief as the Dickensian character she ignorantly represents. Penny Wong lectured us that dealing with structural disadvantage against women should not be feared in a prejudicially blind society where structural disadvantage faced by men is denied. Penny Wong patronised us about advocating for affirmative action for women when affirmative action for men has always been refused. Penny Wong denied men should have the opportunity to represent the issue of gender equality at government level on behalf of ourselves in the same way that women have for the last 50 years. Penny Wong exemplified the conceited arrogance, the insular perspective, the systemic failure of our elected representatives to concern themselves with the circumstance of half the people they have been elected to represent. Penny Wong exemplifies the conceited arrogance of a society. No matter the injustice facing men, our society clings on to the incomprehensible belief that everything in life is fair for men. Penny Wong is conceited in her arrogance and happy with the circumstance that gender equality is something which should be applied to the convenience of women and to the exclusion of men. Penny Wong, we want a minister and an office for men because the issues facing men have been ignored at every level of government for a century. For the last 50 years, our government has been led on the issue exclusively by sexist hypocrites who have used the issue to pursue self-interest for women and who never did care what was fair and equal to men. After 100 years of equality for women, men ask ourselves the most rudimentary questions of how gender equality has affected our lives. Nothing has changed about society's prejudicial blindness. Our very lives are still as worthless as they always were. To add to those discrepancies, we are now subject to a culture of coercive control, structural disadvantage, systemic injustice and discrimination, and we have for a century been denied our fundamental human rights. As Penny Wong condescendingly patronises us that gender equality is nothing to be feared, she fails to grasp the most rudimentary point that it has never been pursued. In refusing to advocate the appointment of an office for men, she must ask herself her own assertion: is equality for men something which she fears? Whilst women continue to mock, ridicule and treat men with contempt, safe in the conceited belief that women are the only victims of sex discrimination and men are the only perpetrators, no one took stock of the reality. Women are the only gender entitled to equal treatment, and the concepts of gender equality are not applied to men. It is feminists who promoted the concept of gender equality, then used it to exploit prejudice to pursue self-interest for women and deny men our fundamental human rights. Over the last century, the feminists have displayed a lack of concern for the safety of men, a lack of concern for promoting equality for women to the exclusion of men, a lack of concern for the welfare of everyone affected by the use of our families as their political battleground. All these things have been done without remorse, without regret, without conscience, because the sisterhood, the matriarchy and feminists have absolutely no concern for anyone except themselves. Feminist ideologues have spent a century of malice and contempt plotting and executing the eternal demise of men. There is no greater testament to feminist achievement than the spectacle of a man asking a senior female government official for a morsel of gender equality and being refused our fundamental human rights. The concepts and principles of gender equality have never been applied to men.